She had a temper, so she could change like this within a second and become really aggressive and blame me for whatever she could find at the moment.
During this relationship, I became very much alert. I was always walking on eggshells because we could be at the beach, for instance, and having a really great time, and all of a sudden he could throw a bomb at me like, "What are you thinking about? You're thinking something negative about me, aren't you?" And yeah, it was usually things like that all of a sudden I had to defend myself for something I did not do.
So everything I did became a potential source of anger. The way I put down a plate for dinner, if I didn't put down a plate right, then that would be a reason for him to get angry. Even a sigh would be enough to stir a fight.
It didn't end with me saying, no, I wasn't thinking that. Because he wouldn't stop until I would acknowledge, like, yes, indeed, you're right, I was thinking something negative about you.
We would have to go out to get groceries, for instance. We would have to go out on the street every once in a while. And as soon as there would be any woman in the in a 100-meter radius of me, she would go off like that. You know, why are you looking at that bitch? And you know, you're just following your dick. And you know that she would hit me with words. She wasn't aggressive in that she would physically harm me, but she would go. Her words would just, she would just verbal diarrhea all over me about all the things that I did wrong with looking at other women and stuff.
Me wanting to watch Dr. Phil when I came from my work would be a reason to doubt my intelligence, to say, like, how can you be so simple? You're so feeble-minded that you can watch this stuff.
When I could hear his car in front of my house, I was already thinking, is everything in place the way it should be? Because I don't want him to, I don't want to trigger any anger, because his anger could be triggered by the littlest and smallest things. I was always being overly nice.
To protect myself, I had to make sure he didn't become angry, so I had to make myself smaller to do so. You know, like almost make no noise in the house, dress a certain way, not look at people on the streets, because he would get angry if I got attention. If someone looked at me, then I would go home and I would hear about it the rest of the night.
Most psychopaths are severely damaged little children, and they have not been able to go through normal development. So they can be very demanding. You have to behave exactly in a certain way, otherwise they blow up or they harass you. What is behind that is that most psychopaths that are in reality little children with arrested development, they have no theory of mind. So they cannot, as adults do, spontaneously take into account that other people have another viewpoint than themselves.
She had like, how do you say that? A monopoly on the truth. I don't know if that is the right way to say it. Like everything she would say would be the truth and the only truth. No matter what the topic would be about, if it was something on the news, her opinion was the truth. So there was no way of arguing with her. You couldn't. I mean, if you would be talking about politics or relationships with other people, or the kind of music you like, or which kind of games or films you like, her opinion was the truth.
Mostly, he would keep me hostage, and he would keep me hostage for many hours. Sometimes he would do that for the whole night, and he would just keep me seated at a chair, and I wasn't allowed to get up or to walk away. And if I tried to walk away, he would grab my arms, push me again, and say, like, if I said, "Oh, you're hurting me," he would say, like, "Oh yeah, you're just doing that to yourself because you're trying to escape."
yeah, he didn't just kind of push you. He pushed you up through the hall. He didn't just kind of kick you. He kicked you down. He didn't just, you know, he told you you were hard to love or you were unattractive. That's abuse. But it didn't feel like abuse until it just felt like I was being sensitive still. Until it was over and I was like, oh wait.
Unfortunately, most people don't recognize narcissistic abuse. And that's mainly because there's a lack of knowledge. So knowledge is very important to avoid it. Otherwise, not only partners, but also children and whole families can be negatively affected by it. It's one of the most dangerous forms of abuse, even if it doesn't give any bruises sometimes. Not always, but a lot of times you cannot find any physical abuse. So that's what's making it so difficult to recognize and to see, or even to understand when it happens to yourself.